Okay, we're recording now. This is take one. Okay.
Thanks.
I love you. See you.
Okay. William and I first met at Damascus, actually. I had gotten in the night before, driving in with my friend Mariana. So we'd come early, and kind of during the check-in process, we felt like we didn't have very much to do. Didn't want to just stand around and feel a little bit awkward. So we started greeting people.
I didn't really know anybody there. She was actually one of the first people I actually met there, which is kind of funny. I just remember so clearly she greeted me with such a warm smile, and I think that's one of the things that I remember most about her when we first met. Besides the fact that, I obviously thought she was beautiful, but I wasn't going to tell her that in the moment.
We'd been good friends for a year, almost the whole duration of the program. Yeah, there were ways that I thought he's so sweet, or oh, he's so much fun to be around. But I don't think our close relationship had really started until we began the 2-year program during the full-time year.
Our friendship at Damascus was actually very, very good. We got really close, and I think the moment I realized that I liked her was in the kitchen at Damascus. We were cleaning up dishes and washing them, whatever, putting them away.
We got our assignments for the next summer of what we were going to be doing, and we were both going to be in the same camp.
She had gotten moved to the camp in Northwoods in Minnesota, and she was no longer going to be with me during the summer in Great Lakes.
I was a little bit disappointed that we wouldn't be at the same camp anymore, but I didn't really think too much of it.
And I just remember vividly thinking wait, why am I so bummed about this? She's just a friend, it's fine. So many of my friends are going to this other place, right? Why do I care so much that she's leaving as well? And I was like, oh my gosh, wait, do I like her more than just a friend? And I was kind of confused, and I didn't really know what to do with the feelings exactly, but I just remember being I think I like her more than a friend. I knew we were going into a dating fast over the summer, and so I wasn't really processing those emotions. I was just more putting them aside, okay, this is not the time to deal with that right now.
But we went our separate ways, and then throughout the course of that summer, we kept in touch as friends, and really we were just talking about what the Lord was doing in our hearts, in our lives, and in our respective camps. It was pretty common for me to send him prayer requests for the teens that I was kind of leading that summer. It was common for him to tell me just insane stories of the Lord working and moving at Damascus's camp in Michigan. Yeah, it was just us going back and forth, kind of sharing glory stories, or stories of what the Lord was doing in each camp. And it was just, a summer of sharing testimony.
Week 9, I had come back to counsel in Ohio, and she had come back to be on program staff in Ohio on week 9, the last week of summer camp.
And I remember seeing him walk through the dining hall, with his camp group of kids, and being so excited to talk to him and say hi, after just a summer of having encouraged one another in our respective missions.
And I remember leaving my kids from club in the tent outside and going into the cafeteria area to go get coffee. And I remember seeing her right there, right by the coffee station in the little seating area in the back of the room. I just remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, she's gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. It was scales kind of fell off my eyes, and I could see her in a completely new light that I had not seen her before. It was just friends, we were fine just being that. I was completely content with just being friends. But now suddenly I wasn't, and I was just in awe of her.
I don't think I had really any inkling that William liked me until I had asked him if he could walk me through how to use cameras. And I remember in that moment thinking to myself, oh no. Because I had this whole time just thought of him as a friend. But in that moment, I started to see him a little bit differently. And there's something so attractive about him talking about something that he loved and being so patient in the way that he was teaching me and guiding me and being so gentle, and just desiring like me to learn and helping me grow. Yeah, there was also, maybe it was the way that he looked at me. I swear he had this look that was just so intense. As I was like setting up this like camera, he just would like stare at me, and my heart was like like my heart was a little bit confused, a little bit I don't know how to describe it, but it was like a look.
I started to like get all these feelings from Magdalena at the beginning of our second year, and I was acting really weird. She could tell I was acting really weird because we were really good friends. Right as we were going to lunch, Magdalena walks up to me and she says, "Hey, do you want to go for a walk later or something and talk about something that might be going on?" Like, essentially she realized I was being really weird.
And really, like, my only intention was just to tell him, hey, like, if you feel weird about like whatever that was that happened, you don't have to feel weird, and I'd love for us to be friends. Like, I feel like you're ignoring me. So I was really just gonna call out the fact that he was ignoring me and not really ask about if he liked me or what his intentions were, or like why he was being weird, just because I wanted to give him the space to pursue me if that was the case. I think if anything, I thought that maybe he was confused about his feelings, but I definitely didn't think that he was like sure that he liked me.
Out loud I said, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to." But in my head I was like, shoot, I'm gonna end up asking her out. I just know it.
As we had that talk that night, we're circling the lodge, and he looks at me at one point. We're kind of having small talk. Then he looks at me and says, "You know how I've been being weird?" And I was like, "Yeah." He says, it's because I liked you. It's because I like you, and yeah, I'm interested in you." And so I asked him, like, "Okay, what does that mean? Are you saying you want to pursue me, take me on a date?" And he like basically says, "Yes, like, I do want to pursue you. I want you to be able to take some time in prayer to pray about going on a date with me. But just know that I'm going to ask you on a date." So then later that week he did. He asked me on a date right before women's retreat. It was like at some point during reset. He kind of follows me out of the lodge, and he said to me, I think it was like, "Magdalena, like, I think you're a beautiful woman of God. Like, will you go on a date with me?" And so I say yes, and then I go to my car, and there's literally flowers in my driver's seat, with just like a note from William that says like, "Thanks for saying yes, William." For
our first date, I had scheduled it to start with what we call prayer room at Damascus. I thought, oh, it's a good idea to start off our day in prayer because I wanted our relationship to be based upon the Lord. And I didn't know how that was exactly going to work because I didn't realize that the Lord was going to make it very clear that my relationship with Magdalena was going to be on his time and not on mine. And he did that in a very, like, the first way he could, which was in prayer room. And prayer room went half an hour over time when it should have. And we missed our reservation for an escape room, which I had booked for our first date. I ended up calling the place, and they let us book a new one, but like at free of charge, and it was great. And so we went, and
I was expecting to like go get coffee or go get like lunch after this like morning of worship that we were used to attending this prayer meeting. But he had planned like so many things. Like, he had planned this like beautiful day so intentionally. So first we went to an escape room, which was so much fun. We didn't get out, which was kind of sad. We were still learning to work together at that point.
However, over time, and by the time my birthday rolled around, we went back there and we did win.
And then we went to North Star. It was a little bit awkward being on a first date with someone that was, just such a close friend.
We were trying to figure out how to move from friendship to relationship and what that really looked like, and our feelings within that. But while it was a little bit awkward, I loved every moment of it. I loved spending time with her, and it was just a great time. And I've been wanting to take her out on a date for a while at that point, and it was just a great time. North
Star is actually one of my favorite restaurants, and I don't know if he knew that when he planned to do a date. So it was really just the perfect day. And then on the way home, we just kind of listened to music and shared like songs with one another.
We went back to Damascus, and I drove her back and to her house. And when we got to her house,
and he just kind of turns to me and he grabs my hand, and he hadn't held my hand like at all during the day. Like, this was the first physical contact, and he asked me if I would be his girlfriend.
I just straight up asked her to be my girlfriend on the first date. I know, not advised. And she said no. She said no. But she said that she wanted to go on more dates. But eventually she did say yes. But eventually she did say yes. But it took about 2 weeks.
I think dating in the program grew us so much as people. There were times when it was really hard to kind of see him around, and I couldn't, I could say hi, but I couldn't really stop and have a conversation with him or give him all of my attention. But I had to learn, like what that was like, and there was like this longing to talk to him all the time, to be around him, and I couldn't do that.
You have to rely on the Lord. And in your relationship, when you're dating in that environment, you show each other that they are second to the Lord, that He really does come first, that you need Him more than you need the other person. And you really learn to rely on Jesus first. And so in the context of a relationship, yes, it's hard, but it taught us how to love each other while loving Him the most and pushing through hard things. It taught us how to cheer each other on. It taught us how to set proper boundaries with relaying to other missionaries, and went on retreat and whatnot, and what dating looked like, and figuring it out together. It was very difficult. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was so worth it.
Basically, in my mind, love meant that, like, when I could no longer name things I loved about him, but I knew I loved him as a person. And he had started saying, like, I love you so early on, and I remember kind of telling him, like, chill. But I knew that, like, because we were such good friends, like, I loved him as a person. But to be, like, in love with him, I wanted to no longer be able to name things I loved about him, but to just be able to say, like, I just love him.
Up until that point, she had kind of told me that she loves various things about me, the ways that I do things, whatever, she loves those. But she had not yet told me that she loves me.
I told him, like, oh, I love the way you look at me. I love the way you're so attentive. I love the way you plan our dates and you pursue me so well. Until finally one day we had gone on this, like, amazing date where everything we did was, like, my favorite thing. We went to a pumpkin patch and we went and got pumpkins, and then that night we were gonna carve the pumpkin. And I remember looking at him and thinking in my head, wow, like, I love the way he carves that pumpkin. I love how he carves a pumpkin. And I thought, Magdalena, like, you love him. Like, it's not how he carves a pumpkin. What? But yeah, I like laughed to myself, like, in my head. And in that moment, like, I knew that I loved him.
We were slow dancing after we had carved the pumpkin, and it was just the light of the pumpkin in the retreat centers where we were. And I just looked at her and I said, like, I don't know if this is the right time or if you're ready for this, but I just need to tell you that I love you.
And I looked at him and told him that I loved him too. And after that, I said it many more times because it was just, like, bursting out of me, and it was like, wow, I can finally say it. Then we went into this season of long distance after the program.
I knew I wanted to see Magdalena once a month while we did long distance, but I didn't know how, like, well the Lord would answer that prayer. Because I knew going into, like, long distance that I wanted to do that, but then I also knew that once we get engaged, I wanted to be around her, like, all the time. I really did. And I knew that the Lord, like, also wanted that. I could just feel it, that, like, that's just right, you know? And it just worked. Like, every month I saw her at least once.
We learned so much in just appreciating each other and having each other around, and learning to really value the time that we had together. We were in a place of discerning marriage, and so he had made this list of questions about, you know, what do we want the future to look like? A lot of deep questions about kind of everything from financials to family. And through talking those things out, like we had times that were really hard because we realized, oh, we don't think the same. And times where, of course, we agreed, but I think that long distance really just grew us in communication, in patience, and in really learning to value each other and the time we share together.
She's been wanting to move down to Columbus for a while at this point, and the Lord provides so well that she actually gets a job which allows her to move down to Columbus.
And then the next day, on the 25th, we get engaged. And I had a little bit of an inkling that maybe he would ask me, but I didn't know anything for sure. So first in the day, we went to Mass together. And then after Mass, we went to get breakfast at one of my favorite restaurants. It's called North Star Cafe. And then after that, we went to the zoo.
She absolutely loves the zoo and watching the animals and whatnot.
And then after the zoo, we went to a picnic.
And there's a little tree that we sat beside that we carved our initials into at the park where we had our first kiss.
And I was so convinced that he was actually going to ask me to marry him on this picnic. And I was eating a sandwich and he wouldn't eat. And that's very weird for him. So I got kind of freaked out. And then was so sure, like, oh my gosh, he's gonna ask me to marry him and I'm gonna be like eating a sandwich, like that's so awkward. And I was like checking the bushes to see if someone was filming us, but he didn't. And then we went to St. Catherine's Church in Columbus, to the chapel, and we walk in and there's other people around, but I kind of am suspicious.
She was kind of confused why we're there. I feel like she kind of knew as well. We prayed for a while and I had set it up so that the people who were doing the holy hour would leave when they saw us come in, and we had the chapel to ourselves, and it was just us and the Lord.
But then he hands me this note, and it was just so beautiful, so sweet. And at the end of this note, it says, "So I have a question to ask you." And I turn around, and all of a sudden, it's just the two of us in this chapel. And he like walks towards me and like leads me out of the pew, and he gets down on one knee in adoration right there in the chapel and asked me to marry him. It was so sweet, like it was so beautiful, it was so holy. His whole body and his face were kind of shaking. I actually was a little bit like scared. I was like, I better answer quick because I don't know if he's okay. I've never seen him that nervous.
And obviously she said yes. And then we went to this nice party with a bunch of our friends.
He had planned an engagement party with all my friends, so we went to a friend of mine's house, and all of my friends were there to love and celebrate me. But yeah, we're getting married, and I'm so excited. He did such a good job on the ring, it's so beautiful. But yeah, I'm just so excited to spend the rest of my life with him and to be on an adventure together. And to continue to grow together and make each other better. And that's my side of the story.